The gate closed with a click as I headed toward my sister's car. I paused to take a deep breath. The air felt just like it did on the other side of the wall, yet somehow it seemed fresher and sweeter. Marcy wrapped me in a hug and asked, "Before we head home, is there anything specific you'd like to do or anywhere you want to go?" I replied, "Actually, I'd love a cold beer." She suggested, "How about Butt's Bar?" I agreed, "You bet." As we drove away from the drab stone walls, memories of what landed me there flooded back. It was a messy divorce, an event that seemed unimaginable on that beautiful July day when Amy walked down the aisle towards me, escorted by her father. Amy and I had been a duo since second grade, and everyone believed we'd eventually tie the knot. We were inseparable. Our relationship was a storybook romance destined for a fairy tale ending, complete with the classic happily ever after. We decided to postpone marriage until after college graduation and agreed to wait until we turned 30 to start a family. We wanted to explore and experience life before settling down. However, our relationship wasn't without its bumps. We split up twice, once during 11th grade and again in our sophomore year of college. Amy felt she needed to see what other guys were like. Our high school breakup lasted only 3 weeks. When Amy returned, she admitted her mistake, calling her actions foolish. Meanwhile, I dated 5 guys and they were all idiots. I realized I had the best thing with Amy and almost ruined it. Between classes and sports, I never considered dating other girls. Both breakups hurt, but when Amy broke it off again in college, I decided to see what else was out there for me. I soon discovered that many girls weren't as committed to waiting until marriage as Amy had been. In just 5 weeks, Bev Holbrook was my first. Nancy Newbert introduced me to new experiences, and Harlena Collins showed me different aspects of closeness. Pauline French taught me about mutual pleasure. However, I couldn't shake the thought that Amy might be exploring similar experiences. I knew it was a double standard, but I still wished I'd shared those firsts with her. About 6 weeks after Amy decided to see other guys, I returned from class to find her on our front porch steps. It felt like deja vu from high school. I'd had the best thing with Amy all along and hadn't realized it. I asked for her forgiveness. I'd loved her for what felt like forever, so forgiving her was natural. We never discussed our time apart. When I tried to be carnal with her, she said she wanted to wait until marriage, and I respected that. I wasn't surprised to learn she wasn't a maid. On our wedding night, I sensed she knew I was aware I wasn't her first. We both landed good jobs in our respective fields, and the next 4 years went smoothly. I occasionally traveled for work, but never for more than 3 days at a time. The day after Amy's 26th birthday, she shared that she was expecting. This caught me off guard, as we'd planned to wait until we were 30 to start a family. She explained that medication she took for the flu had interfered with her birth control pills. 9 months later, we welcomed Brian Lewis. Amy returned to work after just 6 weeks. Her workplace had an on-site daycare. She soon expressed a desire for another child, hoping to have them close in age for easier raising. I was fine with it, so when she told me 6 weeks later she was expecting again, I was okay with that too. In her 8th month, she mentioned she felt 2 kids were plenty and asked if I'd mind her getting her tubes tied. I felt it was her decision. If she didn't want to go through another pregnancy, who was I to object? A month later, Susan Marie joined our family. Like with Brian, Amy took only 6 weeks off work before returning, bringing both babies with her. Over the next 6 years, we each earned 2 promotions, and our income was solid. We seemed like the ideal couple, rarely arguing and maintaining an active bed life. We were carnal about 3 times a week, which I understood to be quite good compared to other couples with children who had been married as long as we had. We shared similar interests, enjoyed spending time together, and looked forward to seeing each other after work each day. The facade of our happy, loving home was shattered one July day. I had flown to Denver for a 3-day trip to address our supplier's delivery issues. Upon arrival, I discovered the IRS had seized the company earlier that day due to unpaid payroll taxes. The company had been struggling financially for some time. I quickly returned to the airport and boarded the next flight home without notifying Amy. This lack of communication proved fortunate, as it led to an unexpected discovery. I arrived home around 5:20 p.m., and Amy hadn't returned from work. Considering making dinner, I opted instead to take Amy and the kids out to eat. As I was in our home office, I heard the garage door opener, indicating Amy's return. By the time I saved my work and exited the computer program, she was entering the house. As I started to open the office door, I caught Amy saying, "Stop that," followed by a man's voice insisting, You don't really want me to stop, do you? Actually, let's not even wait for the bedroom. I'd like to have you over the back of your couch. You're incredibly eager, Hal, Amy remarked. He replied, yes, and you enjoy it. The couch isn't a bad idea. Should I remove my underwear or just slide them to the side? Amy queried. Remove them, he directed. Recalling the discomfort from the last time he only moved them aside, I cringed. The conversation momentarily halted before Amy's sounds of satisfaction filled the room, mingled with her familiar moans that hurt me to hear. I grabbed my cell phone, set it to camera mode, and headed towards the living room. I already knew who I'd find there. How could Amy's supervisor at work be involved? I had met him and his wife at various company gatherings like Christmas parties and picnics. Amy had no clue I was back home. I had left my car at the dealership due to a brake recall and had taken a cab home from the airport so they wouldn't expect me. I managed to capture 5 clear photos of them before they noticed me and 3 more as they scrambled apart. As they hastily separated, I pocketed my phone and moved towards him. He read my intentions from my expression, and unfortunately for me, I wasn't blocking his path to the door. Luckily for him, he hadn't fully undressed. He'd only unzipped his pants before starting with Amy. This allowed him to quickly turn and make a dash for the door before I could reach him. I might have caught up, but as I passed Amy, she extended her foot, causing me to stumble. By the time I recovered, he had exited the house. Ignoring Amy, I went to the kitchen, retrieved the phone book from its usual spot, and looked up Harold Bartram. As I dialed the number, Amy entered the kitchen, questioning, "What are you doing?" "Calling Janet Bartram to share the news," I replied. Amy quickly unplugged the phone and urged, "Don't do this. It'll just create more problems." I retorted, "Don't you think we already have problems, especially with Hal and Janet? It's fine for Hal to mess with my life, but I have to tread carefully with his? It's not about that. We shouldn't hurt Janet. She's innocent in all this," Amy argued. "I disagree," I responded. "She's married to a cheating idiot and she deserves to know. If she chooses to accept it, that's on her. From now on, I plan to make his life miserable. I'll start by telling Janet and offer to show her the pictures if she wants to see them. Then I'll consult with a lawyer about pursuing him at work. I'm sure your company's policy manual addresses supervisor-subordinate relationships. Lastly, I'll track him down, and when I do, he won't walk away unscathed." Amy cautioned, "You shouldn't take those steps. It'll cost you too much." I asked, "How so?" She replied, "You tell Janet she leaves him, and then I'll kick you out, bringing him into our home with me and our kids. If you sue our company, both Hal and I could lose our jobs. Without a job, I'll make sure you pay hefty alimony and child support in the divorce. And if you resort to violence against him, you'll end up in jail for assault. The best course of action is to move past this and focus on our lives," Amy suggested. "Are you serious? Move on after what I've discovered?" I retorted. Amy countered, "Why not? My relationship with Hal hasn't affected us negatively. We have a good life together. I've been a devoted wife to you. We have a strong relationship and I genuinely love you," Amy claimed. "You can sleep with him and then claim to love me. How does that work?" I questioned. "It's true. To me, Hal is just about physical satisfaction. Great physical engaging, but only physical engaging. But finding out you cheated and then hearing you critique my performance? I never said you were lacking in the bedroom." "Then why cheat?" I demanded. Amy clarified, "I haven't been unfaithful with anyone other than Hal since we got married. You know what I mean. You're a wonderful guy, husband, and father. You're good in bed, but Hal provides something different that you can't." Incredible. I excel as a husband and father, but I'm just satisfactory in the bedroom? That's enlightening, I said sarcastically. Amy quickly responded, "I didn't mean to imply that. Our bed life is great. There's nothing lacking on your end. But Hal provides something different that I crave." "Oh, really? What's that?" I asked. "Size," Amy admitted. "Hal is well endowed, and that offers a different experience." I retorted, "Size shouldn't be the issue. We've had a wonderful life until now. If I'm okay with you seeking that elsewhere occasionally, we can continue as before. It hasn't injured us. It's been going on for years. We'll be fine." Shaking my head in disbelief, I said, "Amy, you're something else." Yet my curiosity was piqued. "You claim this has been going on for years. How many years are we talking about? How did it all begin?" Amy admitted, "It started before Hal. During college, when we took a break, I wanted to explore other relationships. One of the first men I got involved with was well endowed, and it was quite exciting. It seems men with larger sizes share their experiences, and this guy shared my enthusiastic response with others. I had relationships with 5 of them, enjoying what they offered, before realizing I wanted to be with you. This leads to 2 questions. First, if size mattered so much to you, why didn't you marry one of them? Because they were all self-centered, Amy explained. They believed their size was all that mattered, expecting women to be grateful for the experience. I wanted more than just physical satisfaction, and because I loved you, I left them behind. The second question is, after being with well-endowed men for nearly 6 weeks, why did you insist we wait until marriage to be carnal? I loved you, and I knew it, Amy replied, but I was disenchanted with men overall. After those encounters, I wasn't interested in being carnal. It wasn't fair to you, but that's where my head was at the time. Everything was going smoothly until a company Christmas party you missed due to a business trip to Seattle, if I recall correctly. I had a few too many drinks and was feeling mischievous. When Hal danced me under the mistletoe and kissed me, I felt his sizable presence pressing against my leg. In my playful state, I channeled Mae West and quipped, "Is that a roll of quarters in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" Hal, also intoxicated, admitted it was definitely larger than a roll of quarters. Laughingly, I responded, "That's what they all say." Hal confidently claimed he could prove it. Amused, I challenged him to do so. He did, and we spent the next 2 nights together. We continued our passionate encounters until he met and married Janet. Though we still flirted, our relationship reignited when Janet became pregnant and began declining closeness with him. From then on, we never stopped. "Look, it hasn't affected us negatively," Amy insisted. "I need to go to my sister's to pick up the kids," I pointed out. "So you have your sister covering for you while you cheat on me?" Amy clarified. "No, she thinks I'm working late. I asked her to watch the kids after school. They went straight from school to her place, and now I need to fetch them. Once I return, I'll demonstrate that nothing has changed," Amy said as she headed out to her car. Staring at her in disbelief, I realized her actions hadn't injured our relationship simply because I was unaware. Going to prove nothing has changed? I thought. She expected me to accept her after her encounter with Hal. Not a chance. I reconnected the phone and dialed Janet. She was upset by what I shared and wanted to see the photos I had taken. We arranged to meet for lunch the next day. Janet cautioned me not to let Amy know I'd called, fearing she'd inform Hal. "I won't act until I have concrete evidence, then I'll confront him," I resolved. Upstairs, I began moving my belongings to the guest room. While hanging my suits, a troubling thought struck me. Amy had said, "He can move in here with me and our kids," implying the children were hers and Hal's. I hadn't caught it at the time, but now it seemed possible. Recalling Amy's admission about her involvement with Hal, I realized my trip to Seattle was roughly a year before she announced her pregnancy with Brian. Could Hal be the father of my children? If that were true, they'd both face my wrath. I had just finished unpacking when Amy returned home with the kids. Finding me in the guest room, she asked, "What are you doing?" I replied, "Creating some distance between us." She seemed puzzled. "Why?" I reminded her, "I told you I'd show you nothing has changed. Did you forget what I saw just 2 hours ago? You expect me to accept Hal's leftovers? Come on, Amy." She retorted, "It's never bothered you before. Fine, I'll shower first." I responded, "You're missing the point. I want nothing to do with your affair." "You're overreacting, Rob. I don't love Hal. I love you. I have physical engaging with Hal, but I make love with you," Amy insisted. I countered, "Your words said otherwise when you suggested I leave and let Hal move in. And there wasn't much love in your threats during the divorce talk," Amy explained. "I didn't mean it. I just wanted you to pause before calling Janet." I replied, "Well, I did think it over, Amy, and that's why I moved here. We're adults, Amy. We can discuss this, but I need space." She pleaded, "Nothing has changed. I still love you, just not enough to stop cheating." I left to spend time with the kids, helping them with homework and playing until bedtime. Later, settling into my new room, I heard the shower and reflected on Amy's words. "It's never bothered you before," I thought. As I was drifting off to sleep, Amy entered the room. Feeling her attempt to embrace me, I sat up abruptly, pushing her away so forcefully she tumbled off the bed. "What part of 'I want nothing to do with your affair' don't you understand? Stay away from me, Amy." "Rob, I love you. We can find a way through this," Amy pleaded. I replied firmly, "It's not possible, Amy. There's no chance." She stood, left the room, and I tried to sleep. The night was restless, leaving me groggy. By morning, Amy had prepared breakfast, but I ignored her, grabbed my car keys, and left for breakfast at a local inn before heading to work. At 10, I called Mike Hooper, a trusted attorney and friend, detailing my situation and asking to discuss divorce. He agreed to meet at Bud's bar at 5:30. I connected my phone to the computer, transferred the photos of Amy and Bartram, printed 3 sets, and placed them in envelopes. By noon, I arrived at Mario's to find Janet already there. Rising to greet me, I kissed her cheek, remarking, "I wish our meeting was under better circumstances." After some casual conversation and ordering, I recounted the previous day's events. I handed her the envelope with the photos, and she calmly reviewed them, surprising me with her composure. She returned the photos to the envelope, asking, "Are you going to divorce her?" I replied, "After witnessing that, there's no fixing things." Janet said, "I might do the same. This isn't his first offense due to his size. I forgave him once, but warned him it'd be the last. You might not have the chance to kick him out. I'll be on the lookout for him, and when I find him, he won't get off easy." She suggested putting him in the hospital and moving his belongings there. "If you do catch him, give him a few kicks for me," she added. I agreed, and we left. My discussion with Mike confirmed my suspicions. In our state's no-fault system, assets would be divided evenly. Amy would get custody, and I'd be responsible for child support. With our incomes being similar, I wouldn't owe alimony or what's termed separate maintenance in our state. Concerned about the children's paternity, Mike advised a DNA test. Handing him 2 sets of photos, I requested legal action against Bartram for alienation of affections and against their workplace for neglecting their policy against relationships between supervisors and subordinates. "This could jeopardize Amy's job and increase your financial obligations," Mike warned. "I'm aware, Mike. Proceed anyway," I insisted. We covered a few more topics, and he advised against leaving the house and giving Amy control. With kids involved, he suggested trying to coexist until the divorce process clarified and the court issued guidelines. Let the court determine who stays and who goes. But remember, courts here often favor the wife, especially when children are involved. It could be a tough road ahead, Mike cautioned. When I returned home, Amy wasn't pleased. "You had to tell Janet, didn't you? We could have worked it out, but you involved her," she complained. "She kicked him out because of you." I responded, "It's not because of me, Amy. It's because of what you and he did. And I regret that she kicked him out. It'll just make it harder to find him. And when I do, I promise his prized possession won't be functional for a while." That night, while the household slept, I rose at 3 to swab the cheeks of my children with Q-tips. I left the samples at a nearby lab on my way to work and offered extra payment for expedited testing. Amy's words, "Just remember that I warned you, Rob," stuck with me. I was at the bank when the lobby doors opened at 9. I emptied all our safe deposit boxes and went to another bank down the street to open an account in my name. I knew I'd have to account for this during the divorce, but it ensured I could cover the house payments and take care of the kids. Back at work, I had another idea and canceled all our joint credit cards to prevent Amy from running up cash advance balances. This proactive approach proved crucial. When I returned home that evening, a man handed me an envelope saying, "You've been served. You should move at least 500 feet from this house due to a temporary restraining order in this envelope." Inside, the order confirmed I couldn't come within 500 feet of the house, Amy, or the kids. Amy's lawyer had acted swiftly, unlike Mike, but neither of us had anticipated the urgency. As I looked up, Amy smirked from the house. I backed the car out and drove to the corner to call Mike. After updating him, I asked how to retrieve my belongings. He mentioned having contacts in the sheriff's department and promised to check, then call me back. While on the phone, I instructed him to change the divorce grounds from irreconcilable differences to infidelity and to pursue legal action against both Bartram and Amy's company. "Go after them hard, Mike. Make them pay," I emphasized. He phoned me back within 15 minutes, saying 2 deputies would arrive within the next 30 minutes to help me access the house. However, until the court made further arrangements, I could only retrieve my clothes and toiletries. 20 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived at the house. I started my car and parked behind them. The deputies introduced themselves, advising me to wait for their signal before approaching. They then went up to the house and rang the bell. Amy answered, and after a brief exchange, the deputies signaled for me to come over. They reminded me I could only take my clothes and toiletries before escorting me inside. On my way to the stairs, I peeked into the kitchen to check on the kids. They were absent, but Hal was there, sitting with a beer that I had purchased. Despite my anger, I refrained from confronting him with the deputies present. As we headed upstairs, Amy stood in the doorway watching me pack. Succumbing to a childish impulse, I remarked without looking her way, You messed up big this time, Amy. Throughout the day at the office, I pondered our relationship and eventually concluded that we could resolve our issues. After all, you had professed your love for me. Some love, Amy, I murmured. Emotional misuse? A restraining order? Our chances are gone, Amy. Reflect on that once I'm gone. We were close to making it work. But you messed it up. And Hal, drinking my beer in the kitchen, sealed the deal. I shut my suitcase, turned, and left the house. The following day, Amy phoned me at work. Considering what you said last night, I want to discuss things, she proposed. No way, Amy. Your actions yesterday, combined with letting me see you in the house you barred me from, ended it and dashed any hope for us. Plus, I can't meet and talk with you. Remember the 500 fether restriction? Goodbye, Amy. 2 days later, I returned to the house with 2 court-appointed supervisors to oversee my belongings removal. Throughout, Amy persisted in asking me to talk, but I brushed her off until I was loading the final items into the U-Haul. Inside the bedroom, amidst her pleas that we could fix things if I'd communicate, I beckoned her over. Pointing to the master bathroom counter, her expression dropped. There lay men's toiletries that weren't mine. Goodbye, Amy. Just know you brought this on yourself and it could have been prevented. After that, events unfolded rapidly. Amy received legal papers at her workplace, accusing her of infidelity. Hal, also served at work, faced a lawsuit for causing the breakdown of our marriage. Additionally, their employer was taken to court for neglecting to enforce their guidelines, prohibiting relationships between supervisors and their subordinates. 3 days following this, both Hal and Amy lost their jobs. As Amy's superior, Hal faced the brunt, but Amy contested her dismissal, alleging Hal had threatened her job security if she didn't comply with him. The company didn't buy her story, leading to her dismissal being upheld. Subsequently, Amy took legal action against them for unjust termination. Throughout these legal battles, Amy and Hal continued to reside in our home. 3 weeks post being served, we attended a hearing to extend the temporary restraining order. However, the judge rejected the request and reprimanded Amy's attorney for even submitting it. A week later, we attended the initial divorce hearing. Mike cautioned me that the odds weren't in my favor. They'll likely grant Amy temporary custody of the kids and exclusive use of the house until the divorce terms are finalized. You'll still need to cover the mortgage and utilities, and you might face temporary alimony and child support. Her lawyer is also pushing to reclaim the funds you withdrew from the accounts, and I expect the judge will address that. Handing him an envelope, I said, "This could influence the child support aspect." After he read it, Mike responded, "Damn, Rob, I'm truly sorry. Any clue who the biological father might be? I'd wager Amy's certain it's his." While it might not impact this initial hearing, since Child Protection Services will want to authenticate the documents, it'll certainly influence the final divorce settlement. Will I get to speak? Yes, but choose your words wisely, he advised. The hearing unfolded largely as Mike predicted. Amy was granted temporary custody of the house and the kids, along with interim alimony. I was directed to reimburse Amy half of the withdrawn amounts from our checking and savings. However, a few of the certificates of deposit slipped through the cracks, and I didn't bring them up. Amy's attorney sought an order for me to cover his fees, but Mike intervened. This isn't a typical divorce scenario where my client is sued and his wife responds. Here, she initiated the action against my client. She should bear her own legal expenses. The judge ruled in our favor on that issue, and I couldn't help but smile when, based on advice from Child Protective Services, he set the child support amount. Mike objected and provided the DNA test, proving I wasn't the kid's biological father. I was directed to pay interim child support pending CPS verification. Should the documents prove accurate, any support you've paid will be deducted from your wife's share of the settlement. I kept an eye on Amy when Mike raised the kid's paternity, and she didn't show any surprise. She'd known all along. Regarding the house, the judge asked if I had comprehended the court's orders. I get the ruling, but not the reasoning. Why is my adulterous wife granted custody of our children? Is it beneficial for them to live with a woman who moved her lover in on the day she filed for divorce? What kind of example does that set? We haven't even been apart for 6 weeks and she already has another man in her bed. Plus, why should I maintain a home for the man my wife cheated with? The judge simply instructed CPS to investigate my claims and report back within 10 days. As we exited the courtroom, Amy approached me saying, "How could you do this to your kids?" "They aren't mine, Amy. And your reaction to Mike mentioning the DNA test said it all. You weren't surprised." "You've known all along?" "Just another debt I owe you." "Sure, whatever. Just ensure I get the money tomorrow." She walked off. Unbeknownst to her, getting a cent of that money soon wasn't likely. I thought I could delay payment for weeks before facing potential court action for contempt. Even then, I could probably hold off for another week or two. The day following the hearing, Mike called to inform me of a settlement offer from Amy's former employer. It's a bit low, and I believe we can negotiate a better deal. I'll leave the decision to you since you're more knowledgeable about these matters. Honestly, my initial lawsuit against them was mainly to get back at Amy and Bartram. I'm content knowing they lost their jobs. On another note, we shouldn't expect much from Bartram, especially now that he's unemployed. Whatever he manages to scrape together will likely go to his ex-wife for child support and alimony. Regardless, keep the pressure on him and make him cover his legal fees. If we win, we can secure a judgment against him, which will be a constant reminder of his actions. Mike's comment about Hal potentially paying alimony reminded me I hadn't spoken to Janet recently. I reached out and inquired about her situation. Things aren't great. It's tough with Hal unemployed and not meeting his court-ordered payments. Fortunately, I withdrew funds from our accounts before kicking him out. I hate to say it, but things might worsen. Turns out both my kids are Hal's biological children, and he'll likely owe Amy child support once my divorce is finalized. Or perhaps not, given they're living together. They are? I wasn't aware. How's your case against Hal's former employer progressing? I don't have a case against them. Why would I? I clarified the situation, and she appreciated the heads up, saying she'd consult her attorney about it. I added, if you need any assistance, just let me know. I hope you're not implying what I think you are. And what would that be? Just because of what Amy did doesn't mean I'd do the same to you for revenge. That's a terrible assumption to make. I'm sorry to have bothered you, I said before ending the call. Her final remarks left me feeling sour and kept me in a bad mood throughout the day. By the time I finished work, I was eager to confront Hal, assuming he'd be job hunting since he was unemployed. I took the next day off and parked my car up the street from the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the kids to leave for school at 7:20. At 8, Hal's Chevy Blazer exited my garage and drove down the street. I trailed him to a downtown parking garage, parking a few spaces away. I stepped out, crouched down, and positioned myself between him and the elevator. When he reached my spot, I stood up and greeted him. Good morning, Hal. It's a good one for me, but I can't say the same for you. He attempted to flee, but I caught him, spun him around, and pushed him against a concrete pillar. I then proceeded to physically assault him, concluding with 6 forceful kicks to his groin. Afterward, I left him on the ground, groaning in pain. The following day, 2 police officers arrived at my workplace and arrested me for assault and battery. I spent the night in jail and appeared before a judge the next day. After hearing the charges, I pleaded, not guilty. The judge asked, are you certain you want to plead not guilty? Mr. Bartram is quite convinced you attacked him. I did confront him, yes, but I don't consider it assault and battery. So what would you label it? Delivering justice? I don't get your perspective. He betrayed me with my wife for years. He fathered the 2 children that he and my soon-to-be ex led me to believe were mine. He had to face the consequences. That might be true, but in this state, infidelity isn't illegal. That's why I took matters into my own hands. The law? I'm not interested. The legal system falls short in cases like mine. My wife cheats on me for years, leaving me responsible for her lover's children. And what do the courts do? They favor her. She keeps the house, and I'm ordered to foot the bill while she moves her lover in. I'm left paying for his living expenses, supporting her unfaithful partner with alimony. And when the divorce is finalized, she'll get half of everything she gained through deceit. The courts favor the wrong person. I'm the one getting the short end of the stick from the same legal system you're praising. If the law won't be fair to me, then I'll have to take matters into my own hands. You did break the law, and you've acknowledged that yourself. No, I haven't. I'm admitting to pursuing the justice I deserve. I'm more than willing to present my case to a jury. While you may be willing, I won't allow the court's resources to be wasted on this trial. You openly admitted to stomping his bump. Therefore, I have to find you guilty and sentence you to 6 months in the Fairmont County facility. Thank you. Excuse me? You've actually helped me find justice regarding my wife. For those 6 months, she won't receive any alimony or child support. I won't be making the house payments. Plus, since she lost her job, she can't afford the mortgage. The house will foreclose, leaving her and her lover without a place. My jail time also means I'll lose my job, so she won't get any money from me when I'm released. So thank you. You're willing to sacrifice your home's equity? What equity? We took out a second mortgage for central air and a pool. Selling it wouldn't yield much after costs. Maybe a couple of thousand split between us. I'd rather she lose even that. I wouldn't see any of it anyway. By the time I'm out, I'll owe 6 months of back alimony. I'm sure the legal system would redirect any proceeds to cover that debt." The judge simply shook his head. I served 4 months in county jail. Mike visited me weekly, and during his 3rd visit, he mentioned a settlement offer from Amy's former employer. I told him to accept it, cash the check immediately, and keep the funds away from Amy. A surprise came at the end of my 1st month when Amy showed up to see me. In jail, they only allow approved visitors. You provide a list of acceptable visitors, and they check with you if someone not on the list wants to visit. Amy wasn't on my list, but I was curious enough to agree. Sitting across from her, separated by the partition, Amy smirked and said, "Orange isn't your color." "I'm limited to what I can wear here. What do you need, Amy?" "I need you to sort out some money for me. The mortgage and utilities are due, and I've had no luck finding work. It's hard to feed the kids. If your lover had just taken his smacking for messing with my wife instead of pressing charges, I wouldn't be here and your financial situation wouldn't be this dire. He's the reason I'm in here, so take your money issues to him. When it comes to providing for the kids, they're his responsibility. He should take care of them." "How can you say that? Yes, he's biologically related to them, but you've been their father from day one. They don't know anything about Hal. They only know he's in our home while you're still married to me." "I'm saying you're their real dad, Rob. You've been there for them since the beginning, loving them unconditionally until you found out about Hal and me. You can't just switch off that love for them, Rob. They're innocent in all of this. If you're angry, direct it at me, not them. The issue, Amy, is if I give you money for food, it won't only feed the kids. It'll also support you and Bartram. I could never damage you the way I did Bartram, but I wouldn't feel bad watching both of you struggle." "You're not concerned that we'll lose the house without your help?" "You mean the house you kicked me out of, the one you shared with your lover. Since Bartram's now the man of your house, he should be contributing. You need to try harder to find a job, Amy, and push Bartram to do the same. He's having trouble finding work. And whatever little he manages to earn, Janet takes a good share of it. At least he's got that impressive tool you're so infatuated with. So it's not a complete loss for you." "That's rich, Rob. It hasn't been all that impressive since you confronted him." "Well, Amy, I'm so sorry I disrupted your life. You know what they say about life being tough." I stood up and left. My sister Megan was my only regular visitor, seeing me once a week. During one of her visits, about 3 weeks after Amy's, Megan mentioned that Amy had reached out to her, asking Megan to persuade me to give her some money. Amy claimed she'd use it solely for the kids. "You might want to consider it, Rob. I hate to see the kids struggling," Megan advised. "My plan is to seek full custody when I'm out. My angle is to prove she can't properly care for them, especially with her living with Bartram. If she and her less-than-stellar biological father can't even provide food, the courts might consider my case," I responded. "The fact that I want custody, even though Bartram is their biological father, shows how much I care about them. Helping Amy would undermine my goal. Plus, I don't trust her after she deceived me with a smile for over 6 years. I can't believe anything she says. Will you be upset if I help them? I'm stuck in jail, Megan. I can't stop you from doing what you think is right," I told her. Megan did assist them, but not financially. She bought clothes for the kids and occasionally delivered groceries from her to them. I learned that Amy had secured a decent job. However, things weren't smooth at home. Bartram had given up job hunting because he felt available positions were beneath him or didn't offer adequate pay based on what he told the kids during visits. Megan discovered that Bartram and Amy frequently argued about his laziness at home. Hearing this gave me some satisfaction. During my 3rd month, Janet surprised me by visiting. Since she wasn't on my approved visitor list, they asked if I wanted to see her. Curiosity led me to agree, recalling our last talk and wondering her reason for visiting. Sitting across from her, she remarked, "Orange isn't really your shade." "I've heard that before. Why are you here?" I asked. "I feel guilty," she replied. "Guilty? What for?" I queried. "For treating you poorly," Janet admitted. "When was that?" I inquired. "The last phone call we had. I was in a bad mood and down on men, but that wasn't an excuse for what I said." "I'm sorry," Janet clarified. "Well, it did upset me, but it's okay." "I also wanted to thank you for something," I shared. "I gave you something to thank me for?" Janet looked confused. "You didn't realize it, but you did. A friend from college is a nurse at our doctor's office where Hal goes. Marcia tells me Hal has been discussing erectile issues with Dr. Marlin. It seems his ability to perform has been affected, which is satisfying given what he did to me. You might find it interesting that your wife isn't benefiting from his cheating either, I disclosed. Really? Janet seemed taken aback. Yes, definitely, I affirmed. We continued our conversation until she left, asking me to call her once I was out. I served 4 months in county jail, but got released early due to overcrowding. Having served 2/3 of my sentence and being deemed non-threatening, I qualified for early release despite my assault charge. Mike was there to pick me up upon release. He drove me to a weekly rate motel, where I booked a room while I looked for an apartment. On our way, Mike updated me on recent developments. Amy isn't contesting the divorce, but she's fighting for custody, alimony, and even child support. I don't think she stands a chance, though. I'll request a hearing now that you're out, and after that, it's just a waiting game, Mike shared. What's your plan for the settlement check from Amy's employer? He inquired. I'll keep it safe from Amy's grasp until the divorce is finalized, I responded. Now that you're free, you'll likely be summoned to court over the payments you owe Amy. No sweat. I'll just say I couldn't pay her while incarcerated. They might argue I could have arranged it or told her where I bank. No chance. She'd find a way to access all the funds. Given how the courts here favor women, that could work in her favor. After all the deceit and betrayal, I wouldn't trust her not to take advantage if she could. The next morning, I stopped by my workplace and asked Frank about job openings. He told me to get to work and not bother him with silly questions. That afternoon, I called Amy to arrange to see the kids, and she laughed it off. Once I see some money, you can see the kids, she retorted. I ended the call and reached out to Child Protection Services, explaining Amy's refusal to let me see the kids. I was told she had the right to deny me access. Your documentation confirms you're not the biological parent, and she holds maternal rights. Visitation, if any, needs court approval, so you must address the child support issue in court to have the order lifted. Your response suggests I shouldn't count on gaining custody, I remarked. I can't reveal our court recommendations, she stated. After expressing gratitude, I phoned Amy, planning a visit with the kids at 7, bringing money along. I won't leave you alone with them, I'll be there, she countered. I withdrew $500, placed it in an envelope, and arrived promptly at 7. Amy opened the door, saw the money, and moved aside. My heart sank seeing Bartram in the living room. His quick exit mirrored my shock. Brian and Susan stared at me from the couch. I'd hoped for a joyful reunion, but Susan's words changed everything. Why did you hurt our father? Mom says Hal is our real dad. Amy's smirk confirmed her influence. Frustrated, I headed for the door. Amy chuckled. Come back soon. Snatching the envelope, I snapped, Rotten hell, you deceitful strumpet. From there, events unfolded rapidly. I was brought before the court and mandated to pay Amy the original court-ordered amounts, along with back alimony and child support. I told the judge I'd sooner die than give a cheating strumpet a cent. He warned me to comply or face contempt charges. I retorted it was the first right thing he'd said, and he then sentenced me to either $500 or 30 days. I chose the latter. On the 29th day, I returned to court. The judge asked if I'd changed my stance. I won't pay child support for kids even the court admits aren't mine. CPS confirms this. Regarding alimony, I'm okay with that. But I won't cover house payments while my estranged wife harbors her lover. Remove him, and I'll resume payments. You're claiming CPS acknowledges you're not the father? The judge questioned. Yes, they do. I'll adjourn this hearing to verify your claim with CPS, he declared. Exiting the courtroom, I caught Amy's expression. She realized the child support decision might favor me and was furious. She'd been banking on another win against me. The following day, I returned to court. The CPS report confirmed I wasn't the children's father and that Hal was living with Amy. Consequently, the judge nullified the child support and cut Amy's alimony by a third retroactively. I still had to settle the back payments and house expenses. The judge surprised everyone, particularly Amy, by ruling that since Miss Ludke had a boarder, she'd be responsible for utilities and house insurance. Until that point, I was ready to reject the ruling and take another 30 days. However, I chose to comply. My reasoning was a bit twisted. Amy would be upset about the judge's decision, but seeing me return to jail might lift her spirits. I felt the need to deny her that satisfaction. While she might feel some joy in getting money from me, paying less than she anticipated, combined with the lack of child support and the smirk I'd give her, would dampen her glee. The judge demanded the payment within 48 hours, or he'd issue a warrant for my arrest. The smile I gave Amy as I exited seemed to infuriate her, which made my day. Back at the jail, I was processed out, and then headed to a restaurant for a good meal. Afterward, I went to my sister's to collect my belongings she'd saved from my motel. While I was incarcerated, we chatted, and I mentioned how Amy had influenced the kids. Megan advised not to take it personally. They're just kids, and since you weren't around, Amy was their only influence. Young children are easily swayed. You'll have an opportunity to speak to them. But that moment never came. At the final court hearing, I was taken aback. Amy was granted full custody, and I wasn't even allowed visitation. According to the CPS report, both the mother and biological father believed I'd disrupt the children's lives. Since the biological father planned to marry Amy and form a family with her, the judge decided it was best for the kids not to have me involved. The judge also ruled that Amy could stay in the family home until the kids turned 18, after which the house would be sold, with the proceeds divided between us. If Amy married before then, the house could be sold immediately. The reduced alimony remained, and I had to pay it for 3 years or until Amy remarried, whichever happened first. I was furious leaving the courtroom. As I walked by Amy, she smirked and flipped me off. I brooded over it for about a week, then snapped and started plotting. I'll admit my judgment was clouded, but I'd been wronged by Amy enough times that I just lost control. I terminated the homeowner's insurance and kept an eye on the house, waiting for the right moment. Days after canceling the insurance, Amy called. "The mortgage company informed me you canceled the insurance." "I did. You've put me in such a tight spot financially that I'm looking to cut costs. I can get the same coverage for a better rate." The mortgage company mentioned Allstate. "They say we need a policy on the house within 5 days, or they'll secure one and charge you." The person I spoke with suggested it would benefit us to get a policy since their insurance provider is expensive. "I'll take care of it." 2 days after that call, my chance arrived. Amy left for work shortly after the kids headed to school, and at 8:30, Bartram drove off in his Blazer. Once he was gone, I opened the garage door using the remote. To my surprise, it worked. I drove in, took 2 5-gallon gasoline cans from my trunk, and entered the house. After thoroughly dousing the inside, I backed my car out and set the house ablaze. From there, I headed to the airport, parked in long-term parking, and caught a flight to Panama City. There, I spent a month soaking up the sun and mingling with the ladies, some of whom I managed to impress. On my final day in Panama City, I rented a safe deposit box at a bank and paid for 10 years up front. I'd emptied all my accounts before heading to Florida and stashed the cash in that box. I figured I might face some jail time for my actions, but I didn't care. I'd left Amy high and dry. With no insurance to cover the losses from the fire, she'd have nothing left. She might try to chase me down for it, but locked up or not, she wouldn't get a cent from me. And even once I got out, she'd struggle to get a dime. Upon returning to town, I swung by the shop to collect my personal items. While there, I apologized to Frank for leaving him in a bind. He understood, having been through a rough divorce himself. He then asked if I'd gotten it all out of my system and was ready to return to work. I had to say no, explaining I'd likely be going to jail. When he asked why, I told him. He laughed, saying he wished he had the guts to do something similar to his ex. I reached out to Mike and invited him to lunch at Mario's. When he sat down, he warned, "You've really stirred the pot this time. Everyone's gunning for you. You'd have been better off staying wherever you were. The judge viewed your actions as contempt of court since he'd ordered you to maintain the house. The DA has a laundry list of charges against you, from arson to property destruction. And Amy? She wants you strung up for her daily whipping sessions. But you might find some comfort in knowing that Amy lost her grip on keeping Bartram under a roof." "How bad is it? How can they pin arson on me? It was my house, and I didn't commit insurance fraud. In fact, I canceled the insurance to prevent any claims. The mortgage company might be upset about losing their collateral, but I'm still on the hook for the loan. I even made this month's payment just last week. As long as I keep up with payments, they can't touch me. It was my property. I had the right to do what I wanted with it. In your perspective, maybe, but I can assure you the court won't see it that way." He was correct. After a month of legal back and forth, I negotiated a plea deal with the state correctional facility at Albion, serving 3 years. With good behavior, I'd be eligible for parole halfway through. When parole was offered, I declined. I didn't want to subject myself to the very legal system I'd grown to despise, with its constant rules and restrictions. I ended up serving 2.5 years. During my time inside, Mike, my sister, and even Frank visited regularly. Frank kept urging me to visit him once released, and Janet visited a couple of times, insisting I call her upon release. While incarcerated, I also filed for bankruptcy, successfully discharging all debts except the one to the IRS. They took issue with my claiming house interest on my taxes, even though the house no longer existed. Even behind bars, the IRS demands their due, requiring tax filings and punishing income that doesn't comply with their rules. Sitting with Megan at Bud's bar, sipping a cold PBR, she asked about my plans. "I'll see Frank and return to work, find an apartment and try to rebuild some semblance of a social life. Are you going to visit the kids?" "I doubt it. Amy's done a number on them with her brainwashing. Seeing the kids means seeing Amy, and my first impulse would be to grab her by the throat." "She doesn't want to see you either. She's still furious about you destroying everything she owned. But she's changed over the years. She genuinely regrets how things unfolded. She admits she loved you and that her affair was purely physical. She never intended for you to find out. She's open to you having a relationship with Brian and Susan." How generous of her, especially after telling them I'm not their real father. "Cut her some slack, man. She was doing what you were, acting out of spite. The kids got caught in the crossfire. They've spent weekends with me, and trust me, they miss you. You should reconnect with them." "I can't face Amy. If you can arrange to pick them up and bring them to your place, we can try reconnecting." I visited Frank, and he said I could return to work when I'm ready. I asked for a week to adjust to freedom. I flew to Panama City to retrieve my money from the safe deposit box, then came back home. I settled my debt with the IRS, found an apartment, and called Janet to ask her to dinner. I reconnected with my kids and started seeing them every other weekend. Janet and I went on several dates, but it became clear we were better off as friends. I found a new girlfriend and we're headed toward marriage. She must be amazing to take on the challenge of being with me and my kids. Yep, I have custody of the kids now. Amy remarried, but her new marriage hit a snag when her husband caught her cheating. Unlike me, he didn't snap photos. He grabbed a weapon and tragically ended both their lives. Since our state doesn't have the capital punishment, he got a 20-year-to-life sentence. I send him a carton of cigarettes every month, along with a thank you note. With Amy out of the picture, I petitioned the court for custody, and I got it. Now the kids live with me. I guess there's truth to the saying.